The Scalper Pandemic was, as it turned out, a pretty apt description of what happened to the tech industry in 2021. What started as a bunch of evil bastards with bots buying out entire stocks of consoles, graphics cards, webcams et al. To resell for a profit, has ended up spreading to ordinary people driven to sell their own property simply because its market value has risen above what it's worth to them. The computer in the spare room? Its graphics card was $230 brand new. Now, 4 years later, it's worth more than you paid for it. Wouldn't you sell it? Wouldn't anyone? While, of course, this less epidemiological, more capitalist pandemic affects everyone to a lesser or greater degree, the hardest hit are the enthusiasts. Those of us who've made a hobby out of technology find ourselves unable to fully function in a world where hot new tech is being held hostage by people who got luckier on launch day than we did. Those who are new or are working to a strict budget might feel left behind, or unable to progress in their hobby when the component they were saving towards has climbed beyond affordability. Those who aren't savvy to the market might find themselves bewildered as normal supply chains have broken down, and what should have been a simple transaction with a retailer has been replaced by Dave on eBay selling the RTX 3080 JPEG edition. What we need, I think, is a guide. In this short series throughout November, I'm going to give a little bit of advice for people looking to build or upgrade a gaming PC using new and used parts at the end of 2021 during this fairly unprecedented moment in tech history. Over the next few weeks, I'll be talking about which parts I recommend looking for and how to go about actually buying things. To start off though, I thought I might introduce a little context for those who aren't glued to the news. We're all still acutely suffering from the Scalper Pandemic at the end of 2021, but arguably it started around the middle of 2020. The coronavirus pandemic had caused severe supply chain issues in virtually every kind of consumer goods. At the same time, demand for these goods was rising. Students, furloughed workers, and the newly unemployed had reason to look for new tech to aid in working from home, distance learning, or starting a new business venture. More broadly, entertainment outside of the home was on temporary hold, resulting in a skyrocketing demand for home gaming tech to help fill the ennui gap. The first memorable example was the Nintendo Switch, a console that should have cost $200 to $300, but the reality of the supply shortage happened to hit just in time for the release of the eagerly awaited Animal Crossing New Horizons. Existing console stocks dried up, the newly released light switch flew off the shelves, and, to the dismay of many, new stocks simply didn't come. Instead, the units that had been snapped up from normal retail channels began to find their way onto the used market, often still sealed, and in large quantities, for massive markups. Throughout the year, the same scenario played out again and again. The release of the 9th generation consoles from Sony and Microsoft, and new CPU and GPU launches from AMD and Nvidia all fell victim to scalpers. On the PC front, further competition for limited resources came in the form of cryptocurrency miners. Apparently, once you force people to work from home, they have to offset their reduced carbon footprint by setting up crypto mining rigs in the spare room. The most profitable way of mining some of the less difficult coins, like Ethereum, involves racks of consumer-grade graphics cards, and it turned out the new 2020 models were some of the best yet for profitability. Images of people showing off their rigs with dozens of brand new Nvidia RTX 3000 series cards are now seared into tech enthusiasts' brains. Those very same graphics cards were out of stock on every retail site, and selling on eBay for 200 to 300% of their suggested retail price. The shortage of newly released products has, of course, had a knock-on effect. Brand new tech has sold out in every tier, with even older models selling to gamers disappointed they couldn't get the hot, exciting new product they'd intended to buy, and settling for second, third, or even fourth best. When new stock finally did hit shelves, it came with official price increases far beyond the norm. Stores sell consoles and graphics cards at up to double the originally announced price, or lock access to them behind a paywall. Meanwhile, prices on the used market began to increase as well, and not just on the obvious candidates. Graphics cards that had been abandoned en masse by crypto miners years ago when their profitability tanked were suddenly being snapped up to mine one of the myriad new altcoins that had sprouted up. Savvy buyers, scouring the used market for a bargain to tide them over until things returned to normal, found themselves in a sea of rising prices. Anyone looking to sell their old, unused computer equipment priced it according to the market value, so even people who weren't deliberately scalping inevitably ended up contributing to an already shitty situation. At the end of 2021, manufacturers and retailers are still failing to control matters. For the higher-end cards released last year, the solution to excessive demand from crypto miners was to put out new products that were unpalatable to them. Nvidia quietly refreshed their entire RTX 3000 range with new LHR versions. These light hash rate cards were designed to throttle back their performance at blockchain mining in an effort to stop people buying dozens of cards at a time. This was, of course, mostly for show. Determined miners found ways around the hash rate limiters and regained at least some of the lost performance, and made non-LHR cards significantly more desirable on the used market. The rather more radical plan for consumer cards was simply to focus on making rubbish value products. Nvidia's latest RTX card, the 3060, occupies the same performance tier as the 2060 Super it replaces. AMD, the company that claimed to be revolutionizing gaming 5 years ago with $229 Polaris, now doesn't sell a single card for less than $329, with a street price significantly higher than that. In their CPU division, the company has also scaled back its range of available products, meaning there's no current-gen Athlon or Ryzen 3 available from retail, and lesser binned versions of premium X SKU processors have been bundled in with their aging Vega integrated graphics, presumably in order to increase margins. Intel, while cognizant of the silicon shortage and finally acknowledging the competition from AMD, seem to be taking Apple's decision to jump ship pretty hard. The highlight feature of the 12th generation seems to be their mix of regular performance cores with low-speed efficiency cores, which coincidentally is the same layout as Apple's M1 series of chips. While I'm sure the drop from 14nm to 10nm is going to help them compete with AMD, the efficiency cores don't seem to be offering a whole lot to PC enthusiasts. I don't know, maybe I'm missing the point, but the expensive platform costs, plus my own finances, mean I probably won't get to see that point for myself anytime soon. For consumers, the situation is pretty stark. For all the efforts retailers are making to ensure customers don't bulk buy items, stocks are still snapped up within moments of appearing on websites. Despite some minor panic over PC cases and power supplies, the shortage is less devastating in that area. Perhaps thanks to an overall slowdown in the enthusiast PC market, regular components aren't great value, but they are at least available. Some CPUs and motherboards are in stock, though, as one might expect, right now the better budget options are outgoing Intel 10th and 11th gen, or second-hand AMD 3rd gen. Those with deeper pockets might well have their eye on the new Intel 12th gen, or are waiting for the forthcoming AMD 6000 series, but at least if the larger YouTube channels are anything to go by, there's something of a general apathy over the high-end PC market right now. Looking back, I think the 2020 to 2022 period of CPU development will be thought of as the lost generations. Whereas AMD's first 3 series of Ryzen and Intel's 1st through 10th core generations were mostly sales hits, I don't think enthusiasts, particularly gamers, are gonna rush to buy a new CPU, even a whole new platform, when they can't get a new GPU. I'm not going to speculate too much about the future here. I'll be doing a year-end video in which I lay out my 2022 predictions, so keep an eye on the channel for that in a few weeks' time. Instead, I'll talk mostly about certainties. The big three have all recently stated their belief that the chip shortage will last throughout 2022, and we can take that to mean that the Scalper Pandemic isn't going to let up either. AMD's Zen 4 architecture should land sometime in 2022 as well, but if they experience the same limited production as with Zen 3, we can expect them to once more focus on higher-end, bigger margin SKUs rather than value options. Intel's long-awaited GPUs should hit the market sometime soon, and if they're good enough performance and/or value, they should go some way to relieving the GPU market, but, well, I have lingering doubts about that. As for Nvidia, I don't know if I'm alone in this, but I don't at all look forward to the rumoured RTX 4000 series right now. I have a 3070. If I could get one, I'd have a 3080, but until some incredible game looms on the horizon that promises to bring my PC to its knees, the idea of spending more than a month's rent on a graphics card just doesn't appeal right now. DLSS and other similar upscaling technologies have now given us a reason to say no thanks to the next iterative update in the series. If the RTX 3050 ever comes out, and doesn't immediately get scalped up to $300 plus, I'll be more excited about that than I would RTX 4000, if only vicariously for those of you who've been waiting for it for months already. The mass market, the people AMD were reaching with Polaris in 2016, have been neglected by both brands for the last couple of years. Instead, Team Green are acting like their graphics cards are limited run Omega watches, and AMD are saying, yeah, this year everything just costs more. What the f*** are you going to do about it? My hope is that before the end of the Scalper Pandemic, at least one GPU brand decides it's time to start pretending to be the good guys again. I don't want to be all doom and gloom, of course. I don't plan on Iceberg becoming one of those channels that thrives on feeding your doom scrolling. That's one of my reasons for making this series. I still hold out hope for budget PC building as having a future. Next time I'll be giving some tips about how you can go about picking up a graphics card during the Scalper Pandemic. In the meantime, thanks for watching, kindly do the usual YouTube things if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you next time.